let's talk about it. Now, this is a movie that I have not seen. None of us have seen. No one has seen because it hasn't been released yet. It's not forecast, not planned for release until 2024. But the movie is Snow White. And it's interesting that it is actually receiving so much exposure right now for a lot of controversy. The main actually, yeah, we giggle because it's a little excessive. As always, the links are below. I'm just going to show the news article about this, but there is actually a video that I've linked below as well, where PBD Patrick Bet-David responds to this and shows a few of the clips that people are reacting to. So Rachel Zegler is, let's say she's an up-and-comer actress slash activist. And I think that's part of the challenge is in her promotion of this movie, she said some things that have really, there's some sound bites that have really traveled around the internet that have really caused some uproar. So some of these responses she says. Let me find some of these. So she's saying that it's like a modern age Snow White story, that it's that they rewrote the story, that it's not about a love story because it doesn't need to be about a love story. So it seems like they're going woke again. And then she says like the story of Snow White. If you remember the story of Snow White, it's obviously Snow White was a beautiful, beautiful girl. The king's wife died, the queen died, and so he remarried, and then this wicked new queen, the wicked stepmother or something like that. What I can't remember exactly what the lineage has been a while since I've watched since I've seen the story. The wicked stepmother sends a hitman out to kill Snow White. He decides, obviously, rightly so, not to kill Snow White. Snow White then goes and stays with the 7 dwarfs. The wicked stepmother then poisons her with an apple, and then a prince comes and saves her by his power of being Prince Charming, and kisses her and brings her back to life. Or brings her awake. No, she's not Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty was one that was asleep. That's right. She ate the apple and died, and the prince gave her mouth to mouth, and she survived. Or she came back to life. And the way that Rachel describes the story is, she says, the original film was a love story with a guy who literally stalks her. And then she goes, weed. So, it just grinds me the way that she talks. But anyway, Dr. Rod, it seems like she is trying to make an activist story or message out of something that doesn't need to be. For me, it seems she kind of is portraying herself as this like all righteous, like higher than now, like everyone else needs to bow down to me, and to me it's just repulsive. That's what I see out of it. What do you see when you see her talking about the movie in this way?
Oh, goodness, it troubles me. It just troubles me. Disney hasn't got a good track record in recent times. I think they've had 5 flops in a row. My guess is this is another flop in the making. Mm-hmm. If I was advising Disney, I'd say, hey, leave all the fairy tales alone. Don't try to remake them. Uh-huh. Because what they're trying to do, they're trying to make a social comment. Okay, do it. Write a new script. different heroes, etc., and just do it. Don't use an old fairy tale as a hook and totally rewrite it and ruin the whole thing. Look, it's a flop in the making, and I don't know. It might not ever actually get into the cinemas at this rate. In any case, Disney should really stick to their knitting. Stop trying to social engineer us all through your movies, because people don't want to watch them, and I think that's been demonstrated. As for Rachel, look, people are people. People have feelings. I feel pretty uncomfortable about public denigration of anybody, really. We should be arguing about ideas.
Yes.
So, some of the commentators, of course, make comments about her appearance, her intellect, and all these kinds of things that I don't really think help very much. I think we should be debating ideas. Honestly, we should have courteous debate about ideas, and it can be vigorous and rigorous. But I think we should be very careful about attacking people, because every single person is created by and loved by God, and that's where their value lies, and we need to recognise that. And I would have to say that sometimes the conservative commentators disappoint me a little bit, because they do make much of attacking the person.
Yeah.
Look, to get to the point where she has career-wise, Rachel has to have, one, worked hard, and two, had some raw talent. So good on her for that. But of course, having succeeded in entertainment, having succeeded in acting, doesn't necessarily equip you well to make social commentary or to engage in a public debate about really important ethical issues. It doesn't make you a literary expert either, who knows all there is to know about the genesis of, the development of, and the meaning of fairy tales. And you can read quite intellectual books about those kinds of things. So I'm reluctant to attack her as a person. I disagree with her views. And when I look back on my childhood, I was born in a country town, and in school and in Sunday school and at home, we either were read or read ourselves all these fairy tales. I don't think I ever felt they were real. I don't think I ever felt I was learning any kind of moral lessons from them. I was simply being entertained. I don't think I was being socialised. I really don't. And when you hear some of the modern critiques of fairy tales like Snow White, I'm just left shaking my head, thinking these ideas are just not right. You know, they're just not right.
I want to jump onto what you were talking about let's discuss the ideas rather than the person. And what I actually feel like is Rachel herself, you are 100% right. She's gifted. She's talented. She's been, she's obviously, she has to be good at what she does to get to where she's been. Like, that's fine. Now, some say it's because of her Hispanic background, that she's a equality quota and all that sort of. Even so, let's say that she's still beat out all other quota people that had to get, like, she does a good job, right? She's good at what she's good at acting. However, the way that she's talking, now I'm not talking about her, I'm talking about the way that she's talking. It speaks to me very quite obviously, and this is an overgeneralization, but it's definitely like if you encapsulate into a box that generation, it's almost like she is a product of that generation. It's all about activism. It's all about victimhood. Just the way she expresses what she said, like how she goes, weed, and like, I'm just like, what is it with that generation that have just found this really annoying way to communicate, but she is a product of that generation.
Well, she is, and look, I don't know whether I should say this or not, but I think those on the right, and I guess I would be classified as someone on the right, I think we have made a mistake by popularising the term woke or wokeness.
Yeah.
It was used originally as an insult to those on the left around about 2010, I think it appeared, although it was in popular use by blacks in America in the 1950s.
Yeah,
it was from stay woke, which meant stay awake to social issues. But its history goes right back to the beginning of the 20th century, around 1905 or thereabouts. And I think what's happened is this term woke has become widely used and nobody really knows what it means.
Yes.
That's the problem. Now, I think we should call woke what it is. It's a political agenda which aligns with Marxism, pure and simple. It's cultural Marxism. And the language that Rachel uses is just replete with the words, the phrases, the sentences that are used by those who adhere to the cultural Marxist political agenda. I really think we should call it what it is. She's a representative of those who adhere to cultural Marxism. Now, I think one of the issues for a lot of young people today is they've never learnt philosophy. They wouldn't be aware that the language they are repeating, which they might have heard in university or in acting school or wherever, they're not aware that the language they are repeating is replete with references to Marxism. So economic Marxism failed. It was an abject failure. And so Marxism is these days expressed in cultural forms. So, I'd really love to see us remove the term woke from the vocabulary altogether, call it what it is. It's a political agenda and its proper name is cultural Marxism. We can trace its history right back at least to the middle of last century. And so many people who are involved, say, in Hollywood, so many people involved in business, so many people involved in politics today are really captives to this particular ideology. And many of them, I'm afraid, don't even realise that they are because they've never learnt anything about political ideology. They've never been taught philosophy. So they don't realise that there are other ways of thinking. And I think they've also been taught to denigrate the people who hold views that are different to yours. And that's part of the Marxist agenda in any case.
That's really good. Because you're right. I actually remember that I used the term woke once when I was doing like an Instagram live or something, probably going back 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even more, maybe like 7 years ago. And I'd known it because I'm heavily involved in the hip hop culture and always listen to that music. And woke was really just more about staying awake, like being aware of, like be aware of what you're doing, be aware of how you're interacting, be wary of people like wake up, right? And I remember I used it once on a live, and I was I said it, and it wasn't part of my normal vocabulary. I used it, and then I think it was probably about 6 months, 12 months later, I then started seeing woke being this, like, as you say, this cultural Marxism kind of come out. I'm like, oh, did I use it wrong? I shouldn't have said that I woke and all that sort of stuff. And I realized you're right. It's really shifted its meaning. Well, we've used that label for something else than what it really is. I think that's a powerful message, that if you actually understand the culture of, like we say, she's a product of that culture. She's a product, like she's just literally just regurgitating the same things she's hearing, but does she actually know what they mean? Does she actually know the heritage of those things? I wonder if most of those people that are arguing for those things I wonder whether they even know what Marxism is, or even like really care about it that much, but they care about this, what's become culturally popular, not actually realize what Marxism is. So I think that's really, really important, Dr. Rowley. That's actually, I think, a great insight in, like we need to be very careful of what is actually influencing us. We may be regurgitating something that actually is something else. So we need to be aware of what's actually influencing us, so that we know, like, where does it come from? Where's that heritage? What's the history of that? So we know what ideologies we're actually aligning ourselves with, because it's very easy to just become indoctrinated because we're using a couple of slang or modern terminology or popular sayings, or you're kind of almost hopping on the bandwagon. But do we actually know what that heritage is? And I mean, look, to bring it back to a leadership skew, you're not really a leader if you're just regurgitating someone else's theories and don't actually understand those things.
Listen to the words that you speak. If you're a leader, it's so easy to pick up the language of cultural Marxism. It's so easy to pick up that concept that we belong to a group, and that actually defines our identity, which is actually antithetical to the biblical story about us having individual value, having individual personality, having individual gifts, etc. We're not defined, biblically speaking, by the color of our skin. We're not defined by our ethnicity or anything like that at all. So as leaders, we need to be particularly sensitive that we're not just picking up language and repeating it without really understanding what it actually means.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Thank you, Dr. Rod. That went somewhere that I was not expecting it to, and I love our conversations. Hey, you've just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube Leadership podcast. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If it challenged your leadership or inspired you in some way, put a comment below. And if you want to watch the full episode or more content like this, check out our channel. And hey, consider subscribing while you're there.